You to pay a tiny little bit more for your gasoline. Just remember, you're doing it so that a very evil country cannot have a country. Really, it's the #1 state sponsor of terror in the world. We don't want to have them have a nuclear weapon. So remember that when you have to pay a little bit more, you're at $4. It's okay. I mean, it's I'll never apologize. I did the right thing.
He'll never apologize for not serving you, for driving up your prices and going into endless wars, the exact opposite of what he promised. Because beloved Israel must be served, and no one can apologize for that. Now remember, last year this time, gasoline was around $3. Now it's above $4. But that's all your fault, okay? Not Trump's fault and not Israel's fault. So Anna, tell us all about it.
Well, I think it's important to check in on what ordinary Americans are already experiencing as a result of inflation, runaway inflation. We're now starting to see the ramifications of the war that we are fighting on behalf of Israel. That has led to the Strait of Hormuz being closed. It has also led to the Red Sea and the Houthis no longer allowing the Saudis to transit oil through the Red Sea. And so what is that translating into? Well, people are struggling to pay for necessities. That was already the case, and this situation is exacerbating it. So everyday Americans aren't just struggling at the gas pump, it's everything from food to utility bills. And it's become such a problem that you have these predatory loan sharks behind buy now, pay later companies cashing in. And they're cashing in big time. In fact, 2 of those companies, Flex and Zip, are now letting people take out loans on broadband service, their electric bills, health insurance, mobile phone service, their mortgages, water bills. So Affirm, one of the most popular pay later apps or services, is also providing loans to tenants who are having trouble affording their rent and need a little bit of an extension in their monthly rent payment. So they can extend it for about 2 weeks with a service that's being offered by Affirm. But there are consequences to that, and we'll get to in just a minute. Now, according to research that was just released by the Federal Reserve, Americans spent $160 billion with a billion dollars last year through pay later loans, nearly twice what consumers spent 2 years earlier in 2023. That's still a fraction, though, of the more than $3 trillion US shoppers spend annually on consumer credit cards. In fact, consumer debt, credit card debt is still at record levels. That has not been alleviated, as you can imagine. But there's more. And I call them loan sharks for a reason. Not only are the interest rates tied to these buy now, pay later loans incredibly high, lenders are often very deceptive of the terms involved. And there's usually an option to make 4 payments for 0% interest. However, the longer term financing through these buy now, pay later services carry interest rates up to 36%. And if you are late on a payment, of course, there's all sorts of penalties and fees. The Consumer Financial Protection Bureau at the tail end of last year, December 2025, put out a report that looked into 2023 numbers. So obviously we're talking about 2023, has nothing to do with the Iran war. I want to be clear about that. But it was already starting to snowball into a problem, right? These buy now, pay later type loans. So across 6 companies, lenders originated $335.8 million buy now, pay later loans totaling $45.2 billion with an average loan size of $135, inflation adjusted. We're in a bad place as a country when our fellow Americans have to take out short-term loans for $135 on average. But let me continue. The user base expanded as well. Get a load of this, 53.6 million consumers took at least one buy now, pay later loan in 2023, and average usage increased to 6.3 loans per user per lender, with an average annual buy now, pay later loan amount of $848, inflation adjusted.
So we're getting decimated out here.
Totally decimated.
And Trump and pretty much everybody in Washington goes, we don't care. We're not even gonna cover it.
I'm not gonna apologize.
Yeah, so But like, look at where all the attention is. The attention should be on your problems. This is theoretically a democracy of the people, by the people, for the people, right? No one gives a damn about your problems. And instead, whether it's Biden or Trump, you always get Netanyahu, right? So now we're back into a war in the Middle East. Everybody's talking about the Middle East, the Middle East, the Middle East. And by the way, it's only making it worse, right? Gas prices are going up because of the war. Inflation's going up because of the war. Unemployment's going up because of the war. And so all of your problems just got worse, and no one's doing anything to fix it because everybody's obsessed with, yes, but what does Israel want? How about the proxies of Iran? How about the drones and the ballistic missiles? And how many countries do we have to invade? And how much money do we have to give them for their genocide? But you're supposed to be the main people that the government is taking care of. It's called the House of Representatives. They're supposed to represent you. So yes, Trump's a giant jackass. And he's so stupid that he says it out loud. I don't care about you. I'm not going to apologize. When he was talking about housing prices a couple of weeks ago, he said, I'm glad they're high. Why? Because he owns a couple of nations. So he wants their price to be higher.
I hate him so much. Wow.
So yeah, he's just spitting in your face, but it doesn't really matter because all Washington doesn't care about you. None of them care about you.
And I think it's important to emphasize that, Jake, because I think a lot of people get misled into thinking the problems we're experiencing can be pinned on one or two politicians, but that's not the case. This has been a growing issue, and Trump is simply another representative of perpetuating the issues that we're experiencing in this country. Trump just signed a deal with Raytheon, $22.9 billion for Tomahawk missiles. Because we've depleted so many of our missiles fighting Israel's wars, providing weaponry, for their mass slaughter campaigns and border expansion policy in the Middle East. And if you look at polling data, it does confirm that the affordability crisis is serious. Polling shows that the crisis is real. I want to just get into that briefly. Americans are making cuts to their lives just to get by, right? Cuts to things that they need in their lives to get by. In fact, consumer spending in July was down 0.6%. And if you take a look at this chart from the Century Foundation, it shows a survey's result from Morning Consult. And some of those changes include tapping into their savings for bills, paying bills with credit cards, as we talked about earlier, taking on debt to cover basics, skipping meals to save money. And that also tends to translate to really bad polling numbers for Donald Trump. And we're gonna get to what those latest polling numbers are in just a minute, his approval rating. But before we do, just keep in mind, Trump has a history of messaging his apathy toward Americans and the pain that they're experiencing. So here's one example. Let's go to SOT 2.
They used the word, first time I heard it, it was a word, made up by the Democrats, affordability. They said, affordability. I said, I've been here one day. Don't worry, I'll take care of it, and we're taking care of it.
The people behind him are like, yeah, it's made up. Are we supposed to laugh or clap at that? Like, what is that?
The Democrats made up a word.
They made up a word, yeah.
Called affordability. It didn't exist before.
Right.
This is not the only time he said dumb things like this. He once claimed that he invented the word fake. I'm not joking, I looked it up. So the guy is just a lunatic. So, and by the way though, so now two quick things about that. Number one, Anna made the point earlier that we just spent $23 billion for Tomahawk missiles to reload. We spent all of them for Israel, all of them, right? So that's $23 billion that could have gone to making your schools better, giving you more health care, but now your kids can't get health care, they can't get school because Israel needed another war, so we have to reload. And by the way, you think we're gonna keep those Tomahawk missiles for ourselves? No, we're gonna spend it in the next war that Israel drags us into, but that's not all. The reason I brought it up is because we also just did a deal for $35 billion in THAAD interceptors and $58.6 billion in Patriot PAC-3 interceptors.
We are the top debtor on the international stage.
We're borrowing all of this money from China, Japan, and other countries so that we can gift it to Israel. And then we pay not only that sum, but the interest on it for the rest of our lives, our kids' lives, and our grandkids' lives. So all of that you get none of the benefits. In fact, some of you die in that war, and our gas prices go up, and all of inflation goes up. Plus, you have to put in at least another $100 billion to restock all the missiles that we didn't use for us, we used for another country. Now, to the point I was making about how, yeah, Trump's a particular kind of idiot and monster because he just has verbal diarrhea and he just blurts out the things that are actually in his head. I also remember in his first term when he was like, I don't want any poor people in my cabinet, I only want rich people in my cabinet, right? Because he thinks rich people are smarter than you and better than you, and he serves the rich. So how do we get into this mess? I mean, look, so Anna's talking about loan sharks. Of course they're loan sharks, but they put on ties and we passed bills that were almost all bipartisan. So that's when our Democratic friends catch feelings. No, you have to say it's only Trump. It's not only Trump.
No, it's not.
Bill Clinton deregulated a lot of these industries, right? The corporate Democrats and the corporate Republicans work together to screw us over. Trump is just a manifestation of that disease.
Yes.
So we legalized a whole bunch of things that used to be illegal. Fraud. Donald Trump let go of almost every white collar criminal charged on fraud as soon as he got into office in his second term. By the way, the media barely noticed. OxyContin is basically heroin. We legalized it, we put the drug dealers in suits.
Yep.
And they went and created a giant heroin epidemic in the country, and tens of thousands of Americans died.
Destroyed families, gutted our country, absolute scum of the earth, barely suffered any consequences for it.
And so it's not like there's no good guys, but there are tiny exceptions to the major rules. So for example, we also legalized bank robbery. Wait, really? Yeah, as long as you're executives at the bank. So for example, Wells Fargo started stealing from their own customers, and they had 3-4 different tricks to literally steal your money, right? Now, Elizabeth Warren did a good job in that case, created the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau. You give Obama credit because it happened under his watch, except Elizabeth Warren embarrassed him into it. He did not want to create it. And then as soon as Trump got in, he destroyed the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, and it's no longer here to protect you. But in that brief moment, when a progressive populist actually got the job done, it actually prevented the bank robbery, and Wells Fargo had to pay people back billions of dollars they'd stolen from them, okay? But now that's gone as well. There's no consumer protections to deregulate those industries. So now all of the things that used to be criminal are now perfectly legal as long as you bribe an American politician to do it.
Every time you ring the bell below, an angel gets his wings. Totally not true, but it does keep you updated on our live shows.